says a fraction, 4 over 9, 4/9. You could not simplify that. You could not simplify. They have no common factors. They are relatively prime. So even though they're not prime, neither one of those numbers are prime, because they, in relationship to each other, have no common factors. They are relatively prime. And I just had to get that in there before y'all left the word relative. Even though Martin has a lot of relatives, he told me. No, there's things, they're both infinite. Because infinity is infinity. You can't get any more than it. You can't get a double infinity.
Yes, ma'am. Never mind, okay. All right, so what we said we wanted to do during instruction is to avoid teacher talk, not how we would teach it, how we would explain it, what models we'd use or anything, because we want to save it for now. So the idea during instruction is that we are learning science or math, and then later on we talk about how we would teach that. Okay, so this would be the time to do that. So we want to review what best practices that you saw. So I'm going to back up, because I kept the list when I went back there. So you tell me some of the best practices you saw. Yes, ma'am.
I like how she scouted, like instead of just directly telling me something, she kind of coached us, but also.
Who is she?
Sorry,
Laura?
Laura coached us, but also we coached each other as a peer. We collaborated.
And what I saw was a lack of fear of doing that, of talking to each other, talking about it, and maybe not quite understanding, but working out loud to try to understand that.
I liked how Laura helped organize your thoughts in science, because sometimes science could be a little intimidating for some. And when you connect science and writing, how do you connect science and writing together? And I liked how she helped organize your thoughts and then help create a paragraph.
Right. And you'll see more of that as we go along these 2 weeks. Deanne's coming in Thursday to do a reading to learn science, writing to learn science session with you. And then the next week, I've forgotten what day it is, so she'll be in 2 days. Okay, something else? Yes, sir.
The use of manipulatives.
And why is
So
that
going
important?
from concrete to abstract. It was important for the science part to bring up the topic of mass and using that as a jumping point to get into density and making an inference of which would be more dense and which would be less dense.
Okay,
Instead of
so
just-
that goes back to our sign back there. So begin with the concrete, and what is concrete? It's things that they can touch or maybe sometimes taste. But this set, Greg made that, and each of you have a set to take back with you. So the importance, since I had a question back there, Brenda was pulling out the geometric shapes, so my question in my mind, I don't know the answer, these are the kind of questions I asked Brownie. Should y'all have had your geometric shapes out to have had that discussion instead of just one student having them? Okay, so who brought their geometric shapes? Oh, well, let me back up. Who did not bring their geometric shapes but has them? You had them, but you did not bring them. Okay. So we have about 6 or 7. So we'll pull those out. So whenever you want them, we'll have them out.
I actually brought some, and then I felt really rushed for time, so I didn't distribute them. Sorry.
So was that important to do that, even though we feel rushed for time in our classroom? Yeah.
Next year, give the list before we have it.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
I brought all my books home.
Before, right, yeah, well, Jennifer remarked on that, and that's one of the reasons why we have Jennifer working with us, except we didn't ask her soon enough. Sorry.
I know, it's just.
Well, yeah, it is, and you know, in some schools it's not a problem, in other schools is a problem. That's one of the reasons why it's important to have the principals on board, so they understand, you know, what you would need and why you would need it. So, we'll remember that for next summer. It's not a problem during this school year, so we apologize. Okay, what else? Yes, ma'am.
I like the idea of the name things. Because in a large classroom, very often we'll call upon the same person or go to them.
And what you will notice is that they are color coded here. Laura, you wanna, where's Laura?
I'm back here.
You wanna tell them what you asked for here?
Yeah, we put, just so I could know who, you know, if I'm calling on a math person or a science person, if I'm looking for an answer from a math person or a science person, we color coded them red and green. Red for science, red for math, green for science. So that, you know, we, just
So
a
she-
little more insight.
So it would give the teacher, it would give the instructor in this case, that if they want to see if it's if the math concept, for example, is understood, then we'd ask a science teacher to explain it, vice versa. I don't think you were first.
So, I have a question about that, and everyone else can probably answer. How do you, with the whole point, I had this before, I take out the kid's name, call their name. When you put it back in, how do you avoid the whole point of them either just checking out, you know, because their name was already called, or you.
No, you don't call their name.
I call them too many.
Okay, you're talking about after they call.
Yeah, because I don't call.
Well, they don't know whether or not, they don't know whether or not you put it back in to be recalled again.
That's what I need to know right there, because I've done this.
But I've been known to lie, you know, like Melissa when it's really her first stick.
Or you call on them when you know they're not paying attention,
Yeah.
just to keep the other kids on.
Okay, that was my biggest.
Right, and the use of that 3-second format where you ask the question and you don't call on you don't call on the student until after the question has been asked. So they don't know that who they're gonna be called upon.
Thank you.
Elizabeth?
Or if you want to take the time to do both sides, one side red, the other side green, maybe if you already called it, they don't know the color codes, but if you call them already. Oh, I like that idea.
And I'm sure there are other good strategies, and those are the kind of things that you want to talk about during your working lunch and your working breakfast.
I
Rochelle?
just have a question since there's a lot of teachers in here. I've actually heard, this is talking about maybe your 504 and SPED kids, that they should know that you're about to call on them. Maybe
I'm
it's
not gonna
maybe
answer
it's
that
active
because
for students, maybe
I
if
don't
we had
know
a
that answer.
consensus, because that's something still that contradicts that's practice. Or maybe it's only that group of kids, but I mean, if you're pulling sticks, how do you know?
I don't, does anybody know what the answer is? Okay, not your opinion, but what does the research tell us and what do the best practices in that?
We're supposed to have our seating charts color coded, and they're not strictly, it's confidential from the students. So if we know that, or if you have color coded sticks and they don't know what colors they are, I mean.
Okay, well, the thing was, do I call the SPED kid's name and then ask the question, which is again contradicting what we're doing now is
Yes.
asking the question and pulling the name.
Okay, stop. Question is, does anybody know the answer? Not your opinion, but the answer. Now, you are special ed. Do you know the answer?
I don't know the answer.
Okay, well, let's wait and go to the
Or is there a
experts.
the answer?
I don't know.
Somebody's opinion,
I have colleagues across the campus that know the answer to that,
Okay.
and we can ask them, okay? Yeah. Yes, okay.
I was just gonna mention, this is not, I mean, there are all kinds of great apps for this. One of them is StickPick. And on your iPad, you can download your app, StickPick. And the thing that I really like about StickPick is it has question stems that can help you think about the higher level questions that you want to ask your kids. Also, it allows you to assign from Bloom's taxonomy the level that you feel like your kid's at. So if you're not, you know, real clear, if you've got a kid isn't at that synthesis or application level, you can bring that level of questioning down and it will give you STEM specifically for that level. So lots of really good apps out there. Stick Pick. Stick Pick, and it's an app, it's free.
When I'm training my teachers, I require them to put the whole lesson on PowerPoint. It does not mean it's a lecture, but it means that there are questions embedded in there. It does not mean that you can't ask additional questions, but that means that every class, all 6 periods or whatever, you are giving them pretty much an equivalent instruction. And you should be able to put in different levels of questions. But I think a lot of what you saw today was people being required to deepen or broaden their answer. And that's the level, that's where you get to those deeper level of questioning. You don't answer, ask, as Browning said, the questions that can be answered yes or no, or with one word. Okay, other best practices?
Use correct math language or
Okay.
encourage to do that.
I didn't know what a prime number was till last year. Yes.
If we had an answer and we had a lot of thoughts to it, she made us brief or summarize all those thoughts in what.
Okay, summarize, yes.
Audio, visual, and tactile.
Okay, visual and tactile, so you use both of those. Okay, here's some of the things that I saw. Yes, no, we talked about that, questions and non-volunteers. And I think this is kind of what you were talking about, Quentin. So there was some kind of graphic representation in it. And especially with the vocabulary, I'll get to that in a minute. Ask a question is what Martin had to do, to ask the question, to teach Denise by telling Denise. He had to ask her and lead her to that. And the way Browning came up with that, we were in an Algebra 1 8th grade classroom, and there were these kids with this whiteboard, and there were 2 girls and 1 boy. And the girls had no clue about what was going on, and the little boy was doing nothing, not disturbing, just sitting there. So Browning goes over there, and that's what we do in classes. We'll go over and we'll talk to the kids and try to figure out what's going on. And she figured out that the boy knew exactly what was going on. So she started priming him to ask the girls questions to help them begin to understand it. And that's where the rule came out about you could only ask questions, because it worked great.
Yeah, it
And
was
that's the
amazing
question.
what he did. He was
Boy,
bored.
those 2 girls.
He was bored in person. It was amazing the questions he came up with to ask those students.
Yes.
I don't know if this is the best practices or not, but I like the way you set your expectations at the very beginning of the class, and because we're gonna be, you know, it's gonna be a brand new year, setting your expectations at the very beginning of the school year is gonna be important, because I think that's gonna set the tone for the rest of the year.
Right. And it's not fair to not, especially students, to not know.
Right.
Now, poor Jen, she got asked a question the first time she was here. She was asked a science question, but she did it. And then later on, she said to me,
And everyone put me my spot.
she said she was glad
Very
that
happy.
she was required to further explain it, because it helped her. And there was somebody else that was, no, there was somebody else. Oh, well, yeah, it was you, because you said, because Brownie, you were sitting right over there, and Brownie said, do you agree or something with somebody else's explanation? And she said, yeah, I agree with her, and Brownie wouldn't let her get by with it, even though, you know, she made her explain it. And then Jen, on her own, said, okay, I really did not understand that. I thought I did, but I didn't.
My explanation was kind of similar, but it was nowhere entirely
Yeah.
the same.
Okay, and then this was one of my questions. We were talking about line segments, lines, et cetera, so should a science teacher kind of, that would be part of the math language that they should use, that they should only use line if it's straight?
That's an interesting question, because I know in some science situations, y'all call curves lines, and I don't know if y'all need to do that, or if you can go with the math language.
No, I think it's just common usage.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no science.
But it
Basis
would
for it.
help, especially at this level, 5 through grade 9, I believe, if y'all only use line or line segment, if it was straight, and when it's curved, to call it a curve.
And then the use of Spanish or other languages, I think I heard you say that you heard Chinese more, was it? Okay, so whatever the, pervasive language is. I know in Johnny's classroom, when she was doing her student teaching, I was in there with an observation, and she had a student in the back of the room who spoke no English. And he was sitting there, it was very quiet, but he was learning no science. So Johnny and I discussed it later on, and I said, I want you to put the Spanish, at least the academic vocabulary in there, and I want some kind of graphic that, that shows the student what it means, so they can learn both of them. And then the ESL teacher, specialist in the building, said, no, they can go home and look it up in a dictionary. And I said, that is nonsense. You tell them the university requires it.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just nonsense. So, you gotta use some common sense as well as knowing what the research says. And that's, as I said, that's what I require my students to do. They have to put in our case, it's always Spanish. I guess, you need to have that caveat depending on, what is.
Well, but that should be the case with the word walls as well.
Yes,
Have
yes,
both the
right.
words and a.
Well, you can
some
see
kind
it
of
over
graphic.
there.
Yeah, some kind of graphic.
Yeah, some kind of graphic with it. And then the use of models, how you were talking about sinking and floating with grapes and watermelons and all, but then you've got this human torso. And the idea was to try to broaden that context, because you're looking at what is relative, something is relative to something else. So the idea of relative in general, and then more specific, relative. That's what I thought. Do you have anything to add? Bob, you're the ex-principal. You got anything back there you want to add?
Well, I was just thinking about her question about the stick, the special ed student.
Right.
I mean, you really got to go to the IEP of the student,
That's what we were talking about.
and it'll tell you.
Okay.
Because there are some kids that, the special ed diag and the parent, they will say, "We don't want them singled out, on something." I don't think necessarily good for the kid, but you got to know the IEP, I think, the answer to that.
Thank you. Anybody, anything to add? Okay, well, I guess y'all want to eat lunch now, right? Okay, well, I think it's probably set up. It's going to be 3rd floor for the newbies. You can leave everything here. We'll lock the door. And, except, wait a minute, let's see if Laura needs something ready for the next session. Okay, we're gonna give you a small, snack Ziploc to put the styrofoam in, because we don't want it crumbling around the edges. No,
Yeah.
small, Ziploc within a
Oh, so it doesn't get
Yeah, we're only styrofoam. We want Greg's work to, be in perpetuity. Thank you.
That's where I'm focusing. But you know me, I'm focusing on my But I'm focusing on the
Oh, I mean, yes. Yes. I can use all of those apps on my phone.
Am I in something? You would want to be with this.
So there's two of them. He thought
She lives over there by the, and then I'm like, yeah, so you don't want to do the water, you just go to the pond, and let's go hang out, get some water before school. And, yeah, so, I'm getting a ride, I'm myself, I'm like, what? Everybody started with it, so we're talking about water, she's saying doing the whole weekend, how like the whole thing.
Oh, no, we went and spent the day at the school.
Right.
Big nice size.
This is the first one we're going to be doing, and 24th. 24th per 2 or 3, not 2 for each. Thank you.
Absolutely. Last year?
Yes.
Shades? Something about last year?
Yes, but you will get them.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
And let me just say that whatever we use, manipulative wise, you will get a set. Now, they're gonna do like distributions, and so you'll have to sign for, yes, I got the,
Right, okay.
but that won't actually happen until later today. And your iPad should have understood, it's not until you can
Here's the idea I had, and that's why I brought this one.
And I don't know if Lisa, I know Rob has it, and he's the one who brought it to us last year.
Anyway, so I left a message for both of them that make sure they understood that this is training. Nothing.
Should I lock this room?
Yeah, please do. Oh, I need my keys. Who's got my keys?
Alexis has them.
Where are the, you got the
They were in
keys?
These are the purple keys.
Just before you lock it over there.
I don't know. I don't know. You know, you can if you want.
The lanyard, they're so purple.
Too bad you missed this week.
That was not purple, that was blue.
But,
It is like a periwinkle lavender. You have to what? I agree with Alexis. Oh, periwinkle flashlight.
I would not call that.
I mean, purple.
It's all new information.
And she, and she's just, she stresses. I can't alleviate it, no matter how much
How calm you are, it's still.
it doesn't.
So anyway, so I'm not sure if she would